I think it's time for some reverse Uno. I don't know. Maybe it's not going to be reverse Uno. It's probably going to be anticlimactic. A lot of people keep saying that Xbox is losing its console sales because it doesn't have exclusives. In fact, the last video I just made, I had to address somebody who tried to preface or modify the goalpost with exclusives and third-party support, which is funny because Xbox actually does have, in my opinion, the best third-party support out there. Like with the entitlements that they give you, where you buy one copy of a game and you get multiple versions across the board. Yeah, please. For y'all to try to make, you know what? Let me just get off that tirade. Let's just focus on what I want to talk about today. And this argument is that Xbox's console sales are seeing a big decline because they don't have any exclusives. But you guys know that when you apply a similar standard to PlayStation, you're not going to see that conclusion, because if you did, then they would be right. But they never talk about PlayStation because obviously it's going to throw a wrench into their bicycle. Check this out. PlayStation went to a third-party approach in 2020. In 2020, they put Horizon Zero Dawn on PC. Okay? At the time, there were PlayStation users who complained. In fact, I made a video. There's a user on Twitter who had to basically get shut down by a guerrilla producer who said, "What's wrong with you people, man? You've played a game, you've enjoyed the game. Why don't you want other people to go ahead and play and enjoy the game?" So he came out and, basically try to shut that thing down. And so at this time, or I guess at this particular period, there were some who were like, hey, we played the game already. It's not a big problem. We like PlayStation games. That's why we're here. We don't care if they're going to PC. And Herman Hulse said, and just, to put minds at ease, just because one first-party title goes to PC doesn't necessarily mean that every game will now come to PC. He said, in my mind, Horizon Zero Dawn was just a great fit in this particular instant. Then he said, we don't have plans for day-and-date PC releases, and we remain 100% committed to dedicated hardware. Only for him a year or two later to say, we're going to be bringing our live service games day and dates to PC. The plans changed. What happened to PlayStation's consoles when they actually decided to do that? Because since he made that announcement, it's been about almost 3 years. Have their console sales taken a 30, 40, 50% tank? No. Their consoles continue to sell. What's making their consoles sell if that standard is applied that, without exclusives, the console doesn't make any sense. Why have their console sales not basically gone insane? They've declined, but overall hardware has declined. This is what Xbox players have been trying to tell y'all, that it's an overall hardware decline. But many of you are like, it's just only 1 million. Okay, sure. Let me hold you to that. It's just only 1 million decline in terms of where PS4 versus PS5 is in the same time period. But the exclusive games have basically been blown out of the water. Oh, wait, you tell me it's because, you kind of have to wait for those games. So people still consider the PlayStation console as a place they want to play their games. All right? Oh, you still had to wait for some of the Xbox games. And I still get some of your PlayStation games day one on PC. In fact, Xbox gets one of your games on Xbox day one. MLB The Show, a San Diego Studios developed game. So again, this particular line of thinking does not match up with the prevailing reality. Because even though some may want to try to pull out another argument, which may be, well, PlayStation 4 sold well, so PlayStation is benefiting from those sales, well, we can apply the same standard to Xbox and say, well, Xbox One sold crap, and so the reason the Series X is not doing as well is simply because it's continuing that trajectory. And at this point, we've not seen any effect of losing exclusives on both sides. Listen, what's going on here is everybody wants to share their opinions rather than actually address what I think is the main fact of the matter. I understand. I get it. It's okay to believe something. It's okay to hold to some kind of a belief. However, if the evidence actually does not back up your belief, or you can't even provide any evidence that supports your belief, or you cannot refute the arguments against what you believe, then you really need to start considering abandoning that belief, or at least investigating more to find ways to support the things that you believe. That's just a simple way we actually address things as humans. It's a very simple way. somewhere, somehow, I think a lot of because you see, the engineering of the console war has been so effective that a lot of folk really don't know how to look at the business anyways outside of the lens of both, console makers or all console makers fighting dirty, scratching each other, one another. Yeah. It's just weird. Oh, you got your game, I got mine. Yeah. And you're just like, what? Instead of people to actually look and say, as a gamer, where's value? Majority of the people that have gone to PC went there because of value. I'm not talking about the folk that are just coming in lately and more recently. Some of them have different agendas as to why they came. Some of them were like, well, Xbox isn't doing exclusivity, so I might as well just go to PC. Okay. Some of them are on PlayStation going, well, PlayStation is nickel and diming me and they don't do exclusivity. That's why I'm going to PlayStation. No, I'm talking about the ones that went to PC because they were looking for what they thought was something that transcended the exclusivity paradigm. Sure, PC has games that are exclusive to it, but that's not really its biggest selling point. You won't see any PC gamer, I haven't seen any, that would make a video saying, hey, look at our PC exclusives that you don't have on, on Xbox or PlayStation. It's called Arma. Have you played Arma? I saw it one time on the Twitter thread when somebody listed a whole bunch of exclusives that are not on console. And I was like, oh, we don't really do that. But sometimes they point it out. They're like, you talk a big game about how you have all these exclusives and stuff, but on PC, there are games that you can't play on console because they're on PC alone. We get it. There are games that are exclusive, but it's based on different things. The developers have probably chosen that they want to keep it on PC, or they don't want to deal with all the stringent, quality control hurdles that are there on console, and they can basically get their proof of concept out there, or they just don't want to deal with it, or the game is just maybe challenging to develop for a console framework. I don't know, right? But it's not like they wouldn't love for people to play their games. They would, but they're just supporting their community that they've already garnered that supports them. So again, this whole conversation about your console sales are based on exclusivity is just so wild at the end of the day. Because Nintendo is the only company right now that is basically walking that line. And they have the strong IP that has existed even longer than many of the gaming companies out here. And so they have the leverage. They have that leverage that is basically cross-generational in many cases to, pretty much hold on to some exclusivity. But they're now entering the realm where they will now need to depend on third-party support. Do you know why? There are going to be so many other games that encroach into their territory. My wife said something one day when we were talking. She was like, well, the Nintendo console is that one place where you can get games that, you can't usually get in any other, place. And I said, babe, you do know that the name and the brand is what's actually, the big thing for Nintendo. Because if you just look at, and I did think, because we're talking about Mario Kart, and I said, if you search racing on Steam, and I just started scrolling down as to how many racing games you can find on Steam to scratch that itch if you really want to race, or want to play a racing game that would have some of those aesthetics or some of those mechanics or whatever it is. There are a ton of those games on PC. Different levels, different layers, different types, different production budgets, different quality. It's quite amazing. And I'm still scrolling. Yes. Look, I'm clicking and I'm scrolling as I'm talking. This is what racing yields on Steam. Some may say, but it's all shovelware. You can't prove that until you come in here and you check them out. Right? Some may say, well, but it's not like Mario Kart. We know, because it's not Mario Kart. But this is why there are a lot of people who are like, if I really want to play a game, I can basically do this. Now, there are a few things that a lot of these games could probably put into implementation that many of them have not done. That would be the couch co-op aspect. That's what many of them are lacking. In fact, I remember when I wanted to buy some racing games, I had to go ahead and look at, couch co-op, local co-op racing games on Steam. I had to do that. That's where the market is right now. And there's some Sonic Team Racing, which would be one of them, right? That is a contender, and that is some kind of a competitor. So it's basically doing the job. Does it have local co-op? Let me see. Online PvP, it doesn't have local co-op. Oh, sorry, it does. Shared split screen PvP. Bam. And you can click that and it will pull out all the racing games that has all of that. I think this game here, Overcooked or so, yeah, it will just show you that. It'll just show you the games that actually meet that criteria. So yet again, we're in this particular conversation where a lot of people think that somewhere, somehow, gaming has to deal with all of these little things that they point out. But in reality, ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, gaming has transcended further than a lot of people. Now, yes, brand name is pushing Nintendo forward. But, man, Nintendo and PlayStation and Xbox, they're all three different things. They really are. Nintendo is like Lego in toys. You know what I mean? So they have legacy. PlayStation and Xbox, they don't really have that kind of legacy. So they have to pursue a different course. Talk to me in the comment section.